Alright, what's up guys, Fish from Beyond here, for just a general tips and tricks of how to progress your league start with the POB of your choice. I would highly recommend picking a league starter from a reputable source like Zizaran, Fubgun, like the big names, Tie-Dye Killer, etc. But I want to go over important notes, things to consider in terms of progressing through the campaign, late campaign, early maps, and progressing yourself to double void stone or even farming. So it is more of how not to mess up your league start, and it really boils down to how well do you know your POB, scaling damage defensives, scouting uniques. So we will go over this. Rules are broken. Springboard Strategies, so starting with an easier strategy to make currency, invest into your build, make more power. More power means we are open to other types of farming if you want to farm other content. So it's like getting into early maps, doing blight inside the map, getting into blighted maps, and scaling your build in terms of being able to do blight ravage maps as an example. But you could definitely go from blight into maybe essences, into expedition, legion, etc. But springboarding in terms of picking an easier content to farm, to make currency, invest into build, make more power spike, jumping to another farm that makes even more currency. So early 5 links, 6 links. 5 links are relatively cheap to start. Flask, don't sleep on it. There's a lot of easy defensives in flasks. I would highly recommend trade for these items, preset searches in terms of preparing for league starter if you really want to get into it. Early maps, anoint ASAP, easy power. So day 2 to 3, it's self-crafting with fracture bases. It's very hard to find items that are already well made because most people are using it and still progressing. So I would highly recommend just fracture based crafting. There are videos on it. I won't go too much deep into it. Awaken gems ASAP. So this is more of let's say you needed an awakened multi-strike. It's best to get it early as soon as possible because usually the prices jump up. And awakened gems is more of a thing to consider once you already have your 6th link. There's no point getting an awakened gem for 50 chaos if a 6th link is 50 chaos and you're still on a 4 link. So to beat inflation, tier up your excess currency into higher value. What I will be doing is I'll be playing double strike or bone shatter. They're practically the same skill with the same tree. It's just a change of a link. And then I will be transitioning into dual strike of Ambidexterity. This will be played on either a gladiator or a trickster. We will see. Really depend. There's not enough information. We're missing one of the bloodlines, etc. All right, how to go about finding uniques or scouting for good early uniques to progress your campaign, progress early maps, getting your build stronger to a point that things get a lot easier. It starts with PoE Ninja. Going to builds, make sure to change the time machine to, let's say, day 1, because there's a lot of uniques that we don't have access to until much later on, or they become more affordable. And then pick the skill that you are following or going to be following. Let's assume Volcanic Fissure of the Snaking, a slam skill. And you can see that a lot of people are using Count's Primacy, Carnage Heart, Lehoop, Tabby if you find it, because early 6th link, Belt of Deceiver, and Tanu Ahi. But if we move a little bit more forward, maybe week 1, you'll see that it changes. You'll see now there, instead of Carnage Heart, you'll see Yoke of Suffering. You have Headhunter at this point. Some people already have the Headhunter, but there are options. So these are, and you'll see Death's Rush is very popular. Lehoop fell off the table. So it's more of to consider what are uniques that you can put in your build that gives you a power spike for relatively cheap. Obviously a Mage Blood is very expensive, but a Belt of Deceiver would be good. Maybe a Prism Weave would be good, or even Mejanord Belt, or even the Rage Belt, which is, I can't think of the name at the moment, but there is a belt. The Bear's Girdle, that's what it is. Very niche, but very strong. So just things to consider. Have alternatives to the uniques that the league starter POB that you may be following suggests, because usually they only suggest one, but if they suggest multiple, even better. It doesn't have to be the best in slot, but as long as it's better than what you had in that slot previously, it's an upgrade. and it'll help transition to maps. Especially like early on, I find it's very hard to beat a Lehoop until you get into like late maps where there are better rings with more stats. But early on, for 1 to 2 chaos, it's a crazy power spike. If you'd like to see what I did for this league, you can pull me up on PoE Ninja. You can go to your builds, day 1, or you can even do current Fish from Beyond. And you can see where I'm at day 1. But you can even, the best part is you can see where I'm at hour 3, at the 3rd hour. So at the end of this video, there will be like a pretty much a rough POB is what I made, just for if anyone wants to follow along Double Strike. This is more of just a general skeleton. You will have to progress the build and kind of know how to progress the build. But I'll just be showing what I'm doing. So and as you can see by hour 6, like I said, early uniques, a Lehoop is usually 1 chaos, 2 chaos, and it's a lot of power. I believe this one dropped for me. I was very fortunate. But by hour 12, usually by late campaign, maybe early maps, you have a couple of chaos. I highly recommend spending the chaos into gear to further strengthen your build. And early uniques are an easy way to get that. And jewels, because basic jewels provide you a lot of power. So if your build uses jewels, highly recommend. It doesn't even have to be best in slot. The 4 affixes doesn't have to all be for your build. A triple affix with like 1 wasted affix is still decent. For like 1 chaos, it's a big upgrade. So as you can see, I'm still on a 4 link and we're still progressing. By hour 18, at this point, I'm like getting into maybe cluster jewels. 9 passive isn't the best in slot, but it's still a big upgrade because it's a triple notable, 1 wasted passive, and it opens up more jewel sockets, because I'm really just jewel slot stacking because it provides a lot of niceties. Damage, impale, defensive, resistances, etc. And at this point, it's always any currency that you make or even drop. You want to invest in your gear, and you have to decide on what upgrade would provide you the most power. Most power in general terms is like 4 link to a 5 link, 5 link to a 6 link, or for like attack based builds like Double Strike, a weapon with high PDPS. And then early things to consider is like what I said, like the uniques, the jewels gives you a lot of easy power. So in terms of price to power, it's very build dependent and where you're at. But things to consider is like anoints, getting your 5 links, weapons, cluster jewels, basic jewels, uniques. And you'll see that like day by day from the week, I slowly progress, like getting a better axe, maybe getting better gems, better belt, better jewels. Like this one is now an 8 passive. And the triple notable doesn't have to be best in slot. It doesn't need to be Feed the Fury, Fuel the Fight with martial prowess. It just needs to be triple notable that they all marginally increase. So any upgrade is an upgrade. And the more upgrades you make, you slowly increase. You don't jump from 5k to 200 mil in like a night. It's slow incremental increase to upgrade your build to be able to do harder content like springboarding, etc. And the way I like to play is I like to progress all the way to like completing my atlas and then just interacting with league mechanics along the way. What I personally prefer Blight. It's a very safe start. And then from Blight, depending on what happens, that's where I branch off. But that changes league to league and how I feel. So by day 3, I'm already on a 6 link because usually day 3, it's relatively cheap. Things to note is knowing what are good bases, and the only real way to know what good bases are, you want to go to PoE 2 DB, or PoE DB specifically. Not PoE 2 DB. You want to go PoE DB. And you want to... Honestly, the PoE DB is a bit daunting, but if you get familiar with it, it's a lot of useful information, and it's one of the best information because sometimes like Craft of Exile is not up to date, but PoE DB is. So things to note is like body armors, knowing bases, knowing like what are good bases and what good bases are to craft on. Like best in slot is a royal plate for armor. Legion plate is okay, it's slightly less but still good. Keep in mind, the better a base is, usually the higher the requirement is. So just things to note. So like I was just using a Titan plate. Personally, I prefer to stick with like the top 3 bases because they're relatively good. Because like look at this jump to 1000. Well, this is like 900. Important thing to note for attack based builds is knowing your weapons. So it would be two-handed weapons and like two-handed axes, especially progressing through the campaign. So knowing like where to go for like stone axe, jade chopper, wood splitter, like what are cool, especially when it drops. Like usually by act 2, act 3, you'll see like a double axe and then a shadow axe, sometimes a gilded axe, things of that nature, and just scaling your build and knowing like what's some of the best. There are some caveats because like a despot axe isn't the best like PDPS, but it is very good like in terms of like balance, attack speed, etc. Where a Kura chopper like high PDPS. But that's pretty much really it. If you've, let's go over like the POB. And this is just a rough POB that I made for myself and anyone else that would like to use it. It doesn't really do like items and those things. It's more of just a rough graph of a rough plan of my progression from like grabbing destroyer, and it goes step by step. Precise technique. So unless you really know what you're doing, I wouldn't recommend following this. This is just more of just guidelines, an example, a rough draft, if you will. And you can see, but at this point, we do the strike swap here. This is optional. Personally, what I would recommend is I wouldn't recommend even following my tree because usually by this point, like I would be like looking for clusters. I would be looking to go into clusters, regretting this part of the tree. So if you like, let's look at my day tree. You'll see like at league start day 1, I have these because it's a lot of damage. But at this point in time, I'm usually cutting them back to go into other things. Right? Like going into the past clusters, getting more passives, etc. So just things to note. But that's really all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment below or hit me up on Discord. I will be streaming League Start. We will be doing Double Strike or Bone Shatter. Honestly, it depends. I don't really know. It might be Double Strike, might be Bone Shatter. And we will be transitioning into Dual Strike of Ambidexterity. It will either be a Strength Stacker Gladiator or the Trickster from last league. The nerfs, really not that big of the nerfs. Honestly, any build that does like roughly 100 mil damage is more than fine for most things. It's very rare, like 100 mil to 300 mil, it's maybe seconds off a boss. And with that, I bid you guys adieu.